If your joints ache when you climb the stairs, if your back tightens every single morning before you've even had your first cup of coffee, or if your neck feels like a rusty hinge at the end of a long day, you are not alone. Millions of people live with chronic pain that affects everything: sleep, movement, mood, and simple daily joy. And while medication has its place, more and more people are looking for natural, sustainable ways to reduce inflammation and reclaim their bodies. What if your garden could be part of the solution? Today I'm going to walk you through 7 remarkable edible perennials, plants you can grow right in your own backyard or even in containers on your patio that have been used for centuries to ease joint pain, reduce inflammation, and support a pain-free life. These aren't fringe herbs or hard-to-find botanicals. Many of them are easy to grow, incredibly productive, and beautiful enough to earn a permanent spot in any garden. Now I want to be clear from the start, I'm not a medical doctor, and nothing in this video replaces professional medical advice. But the science behind these plants is real and growing. Researchers around the world are confirming what traditional herbalists have known for generations, that certain edible perennials contain compounds that directly target the inflammation pathways responsible for chronic pain. I've organized today's video around 3 specific kinds of pain: knee pain, back pain, and neck pain. Because while inflammation is usually the root cause of all 3, each condition has its own patterns, and the plants that work best can vary. Whether you're setting up a dedicated medicinal herb garden, tucking these plants into your existing beds, or growing them in pots on a sunny deck, by the end of this video you'll know exactly which plants to start with, how to grow them, and how to use them. Let's dig in. The first plant on our list is the golden root that has become one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds in the world: turmeric. You probably know turmeric from the kitchen. It's the bright orange-yellow spice that colors curry, golden milk, and countless wellness drinks. But what most people don't realize is that turmeric is a perennial in USDA zones 8 through 11, and even in colder climates you can grow it as a container plant that comes indoors for winter. The magic in turmeric is a compound called curcumin. And here's what makes it so powerful for pain. Curcumin inhibits 2 specific enzymes, COX-2 and LOX, that are directly responsible for producing inflammatory chemicals in your body. These are the same enzymes that over-the-counter pain medications like ibuprofen target. The difference is that curcumin works more gently, without the stomach-lining damage that long-term NSAID use can cause. For knee pain specifically, curcumin has been the subject of some impressive clinical research. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that participants with knee osteoarthritis who supplemented with curcumin had comparable pain reduction to those taking ibuprofen, with significantly fewer side effects. People reported better knee flexibility, reduced morning stiffness, and the ability to climb stairs with less discomfort after 8 weeks of consistent use. For back pain, curcumin's systemic anti-inflammatory effect helps calm the nerve and muscle inflammation that often underlies chronic low back pain. Many people who struggle with that deep, dull ache across the lower back, the kind that gets worse when you sit for long periods or after a night of poor sleep, find meaningful relief with regular turmeric use over 4 to 6 weeks. For neck pain, particularly when it's driven by tension and muscle inflammation, regular turmeric consumption can reduce the intensity and frequency of flare-ups. It won't solve structural problems, but it addresses the inflammatory environment that amplifies every signal. Growing turmeric is surprisingly easy once you understand its needs. It wants warm temperatures, above 65 degrees Fahrenheit, full sun to partial shade, consistently moist but well-draining soil, and rich organic matter. A single rhizome planted in spring will produce a generous harvest by fall, about 8 to 10 months later. You start turmeric from rhizomes, the knobby root sections, similar to ginger. In spring, after your last frost date, plant rhizomes 2 to 4 inches deep, spacing them 12 to 18 inches apart. In containers, a 12 to 15-inch pot works well for a single plant. Use a quality potting mix enriched with compost or worm castings. Through the summer, turmeric produces beautiful tropical-looking foliage, tall, upright leaves that can reach 3 to 4 feet, and sometimes lovely pale yellow flowers. In fall, when the leaves begin to yellow and die back, it's time to harvest. Dig up the entire root mass, brush off the soil, and harvest what you need. Save a few knobby pieces to replant next spring, just as you would with ginger. To use fresh turmeric, grate or slice it into soups, stews, and smoothies. Dry and powder the rhizomes for longer-term storage. For maximum anti-inflammatory effect, always pair turmeric with black pepper. The piperine in pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. It's not optional if you want results. A little fat also helps, since curcumin is fat-soluble. A simple daily anti-inflammation drink: warm milk or your favorite milk alternative, 1 teaspoon of fresh or powdered turmeric, a generous pinch of black pepper, and a drizzle of raw honey. Drink it every morning and notice the difference in your joints within 2 to 3 weeks. This is often called golden milk, and once you make it a habit, your joints will remind you when you miss a day. If turmeric is the golden anti-inflammatory, ginger is its fierce, fiery companion. and for people dealing with the sharp, nerve-related pain of back and neck issues, ginger may actually be the more powerful of the two. Ginger is closely related to turmeric, same plant family, same growing conditions, same container growing potential in cold climates. It grows from rhizomes, loves warmth and moisture, and can produce a surprisingly large harvest from a single planting. In zones 8 and above, ginger returns every year from its root. In colder areas, dig it up in fall and store it indoors, or simply treat it as a tender perennial in a pot. But what makes ginger so uniquely powerful for pain? Ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shawgales. Shawgales are especially concentrated in dried ginger. These compounds inhibit inflammation pathways in ways similar to curcumin, but they also have direct analgesic pain-blocking effects. They work on pain receptors themselves, not just on surrounding inflammation. This means ginger can reduce pain signals from irritated nerves, not just calm the tissue. For knee pain, multiple clinical studies have shown that ginger extract reduces pain and stiffness in knee osteoarthritis patients comparably to prescription anti-inflammatory drugs. One landmark study found that patients who took a standardized ginger extract twice daily for 6 weeks reported 40% less knee pain during standing than the placebo group, and 63% less pain with movement. For back pain, especially the kind rooted in muscle spasm, nerve irritation, or the inflammation of a disc pressing on surrounding tissue, ginger's analgesic properties provide relief that purely anti-inflammatory herbs sometimes can't match. It addresses both the inflammation and the raw pain signal. For neck pain driven by tension headaches and cervical nerve irritation, ginger has a long history in both Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine. It warms the tissues, increases circulation to tight muscles, and calms nerve inflammation in ways that translate directly to less pain and less frequent headaches. To grow ginger, start rhizomes indoors about 8 weeks before your last frost date. Choose rhizomes with visible buds or eyes. These are the growth points. Soak them overnight in warm water before planting to encourage sprouting. Plant 2 to 3 inches deep in rich, well-draining soil. Ginger prefers filtered light. Too much direct sun will scorch its long, elegant leaves. Outdoors in warm climates, ginger can reach 3 to 4 feet tall with beautiful lance-shaped foliage and occasionally produces delicate white or cream flowers that are genuinely lovely in the garden. You can begin harvesting baby ginger as early as 4 to 5 months after planting. Just gently dig at the side of the plant without uprooting it and break off a piece of the outer rhizome. For mature rhizomes with the full concentration of medicinal compounds, wait until fall when the plant dies back naturally. Using ginger for pain is flexible and delicious. Fresh ginger tea is one of the most effective and accessible preparations. Slice a generous thumb-sized piece into 2 cups of water, bring to a simmer, steep for 10 minutes, then strain and add lemon and honey to taste. Drink this daily. You can also grate fresh ginger into stir-fries, blend it into smoothies, squeeze it through a juicer, or add it to bone broth. For targeted joint pain, ginger can even be used topically. Grate fresh ginger. Wrap in a clean cloth and apply to painful knees or a sore lower back. The warmth you feel is real. Ginger compounds absorbed through the skin actually increase local circulation and reduce muscle tension. Leave it on for 15 to 20 minutes as a compress. For chronic pain management, consistency is what matters. A daily cup of fresh ginger tea maintained for 4 to 6 weeks produces cumulative effects that are noticeably more powerful than occasional high doses. The third plant on our list might surprise you. Stinging nettle doesn't exactly have a reputation for gentleness. But beneath those tiny stinging hairs lies one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory plants known to herbalism, and one that's particularly well-suited to addressing the deep root causes of knee and back pain. Stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, is a vigorous, truly perennial plant that thrives in moist, rich soils and returns reliably every spring, often spreading enthusiastically once established. In the right spot, a single planting will provide an abundant harvest for years with essentially no maintenance. It grows in zones 3 through 10, making it one of the most widely adaptable plants on this entire list. What makes nettle so effective for pain? First, it contains a remarkable array of anti-inflammatory compounds, including flavonoids, carotenoids, and specific compounds that suppress TNF-alpha and interleukin-1 beta, 2 of the primary inflammatory cytokines responsible for chronic joint pain. These are the same pathways targeted by some of the most expensive prescription biologics used in rheumatoid arthritis. Clinical research published in Phytomedicine found that nettle extract was as effective as conventional anti-inflammatory drugs for hip and knee joint pain when taken consistently. Second, nettle is extraordinarily rich in minerals, particularly magnesium, calcium, iron, and silica, that directly support joint, bone, and connective tissue health. Magnesium deficiency is strongly linked to muscle cramping, inflammation amplification, and chronic back pain. Many people dealing with persistent back and neck muscle tension are simply chronically low in magnesium, and eating nettle regularly is one of the most bioavailable ways to replenish it. The silica in nettle is also noteworthy. It supports cartilage regeneration and the integrity of connective tissue around joints. Third, and this is where it gets genuinely surprising, the sting itself has been used therapeutically for centuries. The traditional practice called urtication involves deliberately applying fresh nettle to painful joints. The formic acid, histamine, and serotonin introduced through the skin trigger a local response that many people find dramatically reduces arthritis and joint pain for hours afterward. Multiple small studies have confirmed this effect, and there are anecdotal reports from people with severe knee arthritis who credit urtication with returning their ability to walk without pain. I mention this not as a recommendation for everyone, but because it illustrates just how medicinally potent this plant really is. Growing nettle is almost too easy. Plant it in a moist, partially shaded spot near a water source is ideal, and be prepared to contain it because it spreads by underground rhizome and can expand aggressively. A raised bed with wooden sides works well, as does a large half-barrel container with drainage holes. Plant in spring or fall from divisions or from seed. Established plants need almost no attention. One important note: harvest young nettle leaves in spring before the plant flowers. Post-flower leaves develop cystoliths, tiny mineral crystals that can irritate the kidneys with heavy consumption. Spring leaves are soft, tender, mineral-rich, and highest in active compounds. To use nettle safely, cooking or thorough drying neutralizes the sting completely. Blanch young leaves for 30 seconds in boiling water and use exactly like spinach, in pasta, frittatas, soups sautéed with garlic and olive oil. They have a rich, earthy, slightly oceanic flavor that's genuinely delicious once you get used to it. Dried nettle makes one of the most mineral-dense herbal teas available. 2 to 3 cups daily, maintained for 4 to 6 weeks. Produces a well-documented cumulative anti-inflammatory effect that many people describe as the single biggest change they've made for chronic joint pain. You can also blend dried nettle leaf powder into smoothies, add it to homemade crackers or bread, or use it in pesto. The versatility of nettle as a food medicine is one of its greatest strengths. Rosemary is a plant most of us think of as a culinary herb, something to tuck under a roasting chicken or snip into focaccia dough. But rosemary is also a powerful medicinal perennial, one with remarkable properties for nerve-related pain and muscle tension. This makes it especially valuable for neck pain and upper back pain, the kinds of pain that are often driven not just by inflammation, but by nerve irritation and chronically tightened muscles. Rosemary, now correctly classified as Salvia rosmarinus, is a Mediterranean shrub that grows as a woody perennial in zones 7 through 11. In colder zones, it can be grown in large containers and brought indoors for winter, where it does quite well near a sunny window. It's drought-tolerant once established, deer-resistant, pollinator-friendly, and some varieties can live for decades if given excellent drainage and plenty of sun. Rosemary contains 2 powerful anti-inflammatory and analgesic compounds, rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid. Both inhibit inflammatory enzymes, but what makes rosemary unique on this list is its effect on neurological function. Rosmarinic acid has been shown to reduce neuroinflammation, the irritation of nerves and nerve pathways, which underlies the radiating pain, tingling, and numbness that accompany chronic neck problems and cervical nerve compression. Rosemary also has significant antispasmodic properties. It helps relax muscles in spasm. For people whose neck pain and upper back pain has a strong muscular tension component, that tightness and burning that runs from the base of the skull down across the trapezius, rosemary addresses this directly. It's not just reducing inflammation, it's physically relaxing the muscle tissue. The aromatherapy research on rosemary is also worth noting. Inhaling rosemary's volatile compounds, simply brushing the leaves with your hand as you walk by in the garden, activates pathways that reduce stress hormones. Since elevated cortisol is one of the drivers of chronic muscle tension, this casual daily aromatherapy is a genuine benefit of having rosemary growing where you pass it regularly. Growing rosemary successfully comes down to getting a few fundamentals right. It must have full sun, at least 6 hours of direct light daily, and it absolutely must have excellent drainage. Rosemary planted in poorly draining soil will rot at the roots, often before you realize anything is wrong. In containers, use a terracotta pot with a fast-draining mix, standard potting soil cut with 30% perlite or coarse sand. Plant rosemary from a nursery transplant or from cuttings in spring. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. They're slow to establish but eventually become substantial shrubs in warm climates, reaching 4 to 6 feet tall and equally wide. Regular light pruning after flowering keeps the plant compact and vigorous and gives you material to use. To use rosemary for pain, fresh rosemary infused in olive oil is one of the most practical and effective preparations you can make. Pack a clean glass jar with fresh rosemary sprigs, cover completely with good olive oil, seal and leave on a sunny windowsill for 2 to 3 weeks. Strain and bottle. This oil, applied as a daily massage to sore muscles, the back of the neck, and arthritic joints, delivers rosmarinic acid transdermally while the massage itself breaks up tension. For internal use, rosemary tea made by steeping 1 or 2 fresh sprigs in hot water for 10 minutes is pleasantly aromatic and mildly anti-inflammatory. Adding rosemary generously to food, not just as a finishing herb, but as a substantial ingredient in roasted vegetables, beans, olive oil preparations, and meat dishes, delivers a steady cumulative dose. For the most concentrated internal use, a rosemary tincture, fresh rosemary packed into a jar, covered with brandy or vodka, and left for 4 to 6 weeks before straining, provides the highest concentration of rosmarinic acid. 1 to 2 teaspoons in water twice daily is the therapeutic dose for nerve pain and muscle spasm. If you suffer from neck pain that radiates into headaches, that throbbing pattern that starts at the base of your skull and spreads forward, or the tension that locks up your upper cervical vertebrae and won't release, the 5th plant on our list may be the most precisely targeted remedy in the entire garden: Feverfew. Feverfew, Tanacetum parthenium, is a daisy-like perennial that has been used medicinally for over 2,000 years. Its common name comes from the Latin febrifuga, meaning fever reducer, but its action goes far deeper than its cheerful white petaled appearance suggests. The key medicinal compound in feverfew is parthenolide, a sesquiterpene lactone that has a uniquely specific mechanism. It inhibits platelet aggregation and suppresses the release of inflammatory compounds from both platelets and white blood cells. This is fundamentally different from how most other anti-inflammatory herbs work. Parthenolide directly interrupts the vascular and neurological inflammation that underlies migraine headaches, tension headaches, and the radiating neck-to-head pain pattern that many chronic sufferers know all too well. Clinical trials published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology confirmed that people who consumed fresh feverfew leaves daily experienced significant reductions in the frequency and severity of migraines, between 20 and 30% fewer migraine days on average. For people whose neck pain is intertwined with tension headaches, which is an extremely common pattern, feverfew works on both problems simultaneously. For back pain, feverfew's anti-inflammatory compounds provide benefit throughout the body, though it's less specifically targeted to spinal issues than some of the other plants on this list. Where it truly shines is in breaking the cycle of neck tension, nerve irritation, and headache that feeds on itself, becoming progressively harder to interrupt the longer it goes on. Feverfew is one of the most reliable ways to interrupt that cycle. It also has mild anxiolytic properties. It gently calms nervous system overactivation, which matters because anxiety and heightened nervous system sensitivity dramatically amplify perceived pain intensity. People who deal with pain that seems out of proportion to any identifiable physical cause often find that feverfew's calming effect is where the real relief comes from. Growing feverfew is effortless. It's a hardy perennial in zones 5 through 9, growing to about 18 to 24 inches tall with soft, feathery, aromatic foliage and clusters of small daisy flowers from midsummer through fall. It self-seeds freely and will often establish volunteer plants in neighboring beds and cracks in paving. Once you have feverfew, you have it. Plant feverfew in well-draining soil in full sun to light shade. It tolerates poor soils and dry conditions better than many herbs, and established plants are quite drought-tolerant. Deadhead spent flowers to prolong blooming and prevent excessive self-seeding if needed. In cold winters, the plant may die back to the ground and re-emerge in spring from the root crown. The traditional and evidence-supported way to use feverfew is to eat 2 to 3 fresh leaves daily. Because the leaves are quite bitter, tuck them between 2 small pieces of bread or roll them in a leaf of lettuce. This is the method used in the clinical trials showing benefit for migraines. Dried encapsulated feverfew is widely available as a supplement, but fresh leaf consumption has the strongest research support. Feverfew tea steeps several fresh leaves in hot water for 8 minutes, strain, sweeten with honey is another effective option. A few important safety notes: feverfew should not be used during pregnancy as it can stimulate uterine contractions. People taking blood-thinning medications should consult a physician before using feverfew therapeutically because of its antiplatelet effects. And if you use feverfew consistently for more than a month, taper off gradually rather than stopping suddenly. Some people experience a mild rebound of headaches when feverfew is discontinued abruptly. The 6th plant on our list is one that almost everyone recognizes, but almost no one thinks of as a pain remedy. Peppermint is so familiar as a flavoring and a tea that its remarkable medicinal properties for joint and muscle pain get completely overlooked. That changes today. Peppermint menthethymes piprita is a vigorous spreading perennial that grows in zones 3 through 11. It returns reliably every spring, spreads enthusiastically through underground runners, and produces an abundant harvest of intensely aromatic leaves from late spring through fall. It's one of the easiest and most productive plants you can grow, and once you understand what it can do for pain, you'll want it in your garden permanently. The key medicinal compound in peppermint is menthol, and menthol is extraordinary. It activates a specific receptor in nerve cells called TRPM8, the same receptor that responds to cold. When menthol touches your skin or mucous membranes, it triggers this cold receptor, which directly inhibits the pain signaling pathway in nearby nerves. This is the same mechanism behind Icy Hot, Tiger Balm, and dozens of pharmaceutical topical pain creams, all of which use synthetic menthol or menthol derivatives. But fresh peppermint delivers this compound in its natural form, along with dozens of synergistic compounds that amplify the effect. For neck pain and tension headaches, the evidence for peppermint is some of the strongest of any plant on this list. A randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial published in the journal Cephalalgia found that peppermint oil applied to the forehead and temples provided pain relief equivalent to a standard dose of acetaminophen with faster onset. The cooling sensation from menthol disrupts the pain signal from tense cervical muscles and irritated nerves, providing relief within 15 to 20 minutes. For people whose neck pain consistently triggers headaches, peppermint is the most directly targeted plant here. For back pain, topical peppermint works as a counterirritant. The stimulation of cold receptors in the skin overrides and suppresses the deeper pain signals from inflamed muscles and spinal structures. Many people with chronic lower back pain report that a peppermint-infused oil massage provides relief lasting several hours. For knee pain, the same counterirritant mechanism applies, and peppermint's anti-inflammatory compounds, particularly rosmarinic acid, contribute to reducing the underlying joint inflammation over time with regular internal use. Peppermint also has significant antispasmodic properties. It relaxes smooth and skeletal muscle, which matters enormously for the chronic muscle tension component of back and neck pain. When pain triggers muscle guarding, the body's instinct to tighten around a painful area, peppermint helps break that cycle. Growing peppermint requires one important rule: contain it. It spreads aggressively through underground stolons and will take over a garden bed within a season or two if left unchecked. Grow it in containers. A 12 to 14-inch pot is ideal, or in a bed bordered by buried root barriers at least 12 inches deep. In containers, it thrives with regular watering and partial to full sun. Repot every 2 years when it becomes root-bound, dividing the plant to refresh it. Peppermint prefers moist, rich soil and appreciates consistent moisture. It tolerates partial shade better than most herbs. In hot climates, afternoon shade actually improves leaf quality and menthol concentration. Harvest stems regularly by cutting to just above a leaf node. Frequent harvesting keeps the plant bushy and productive and delays flowering. Once peppermint flowers, the menthol content in the leaves begins to decline, so cut flower stems back promptly. To use peppermint for pain, for topical neck and headache relief, steep a large handful of fresh leaves in warm olive oil for several hours, strain and massage into the temples, back of the neck, and upper shoulders. For faster preparation, crush fresh leaves between your palms and rub directly onto the skin. The oils release immediately. For internal use, fresh peppermint tea. Steep a generous handful of leaves in hot water for 5 to 8 minutes. Delivers rosmarinic acid and menthol systemically, supporting anti-inflammatory pathways throughout the body. Drink 2 to 3 cups daily. Peppermint can also be added liberally to salads, smoothies, sauces, and desserts. It's genuinely delicious and completely edible in large quantities. Our 7th and final plant is unlike anything else on this list. It doesn't target inflammation the same way. It doesn't contain the familiar anti-inflammatory compounds of the other 6 herbs. Its mechanism of action is more subtle and systemic, but for people whose chronic pain has a stress-driven or nervous system component, ashwagandha may ultimately be the most transformative plant of all. Ashwagandha, Withania somnifera, is a perennial shrub from the nightshade family, central to the Ayurvedic tradition for over 3,000 years. Its name means smell of horse in Sanskrit, a reference to the distinctive musky aroma of the fresh root and perhaps to the strength and vitality it was said to bestow. The word that defines ashwagandha's function is adaptogen. Adaptogens are plants that help the body adapt to stress. They don't suppress the stress response entirely, but they modulate it, buffering the extremes. And understanding why this matters for pain requires understanding the cortisol-inflammation connection. Chronic stress elevates cortisol. Chronically elevated cortisol directly worsens inflammation, degrades cartilage, increases muscle tension, disrupts sleep, and lowers pain tolerance. This is why people who are under prolonged stress experience dramatically more pain than their baseline injuries would explain. The pain is real, the nervous system is genuinely more sensitized, the inflammatory load is genuinely higher, the muscles genuinely tighter. Stress doesn't cause pain in a psychosomatic sense, it amplifies it through entirely physical mechanisms. Ashwagandha interrupts this cascade. Its primary active compounds, withanides, measurably reduce cortisol levels, calm the nervous system, improve sleep architecture, and reduce the systemic inflammatory markers that elevated stress hormones produce. For knee pain and back pain specifically, research has shown meaningful benefit. A 2021 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that ashwagandha root extract significantly reduced joint pain, stiffness, and disability scores compared to placebo, with effects comparable to low-dose anti-inflammatory medication, and without side effects. Participants also reported better sleep and improved function that went beyond what the direct anti-inflammatory effect could account for. For neck pain with a significant stress and tension component, the person who carries their stress in their shoulders and neck, who wakes with stiffness and headaches, whose pain is always worse during demanding seasons of life, ashwagandha's calming effect on the nervous system addresses something none of the other plants on this list can reach. You can take all the turmeric and ginger in the world, but if the underlying nervous system hyperactivation isn't addressed, the pain will keep returning. Growing ashwagandha, it's a perennial in zones 8 and above and can be grown as an annual in colder climates. It's a compact, somewhat sprawling shrub reaching 2 to 4 feet tall, with velvety, slightly silver-green leaves and small, inconspicuous greenish-yellow flowers followed by beautiful papery husks encasing cherry-red berries, rather lovely in the fall garden. It wants full sun, well-draining soil, and is remarkably drought-tolerant once established. Rich soil is not necessary. Like many medicinal plants, moderate stress produces more concentrated active compounds. In containers, use a deep pot, at least 12 inches, because you want to harvest the long taproot, which can extend 18 inches or more in mature plants. Plant from seeds started indoors 8 weeks before last frost or from transplants. Germination can be slow and patchy. Soak seeds overnight before planting and be patient. For medicinal use, harvest the root in the fall of the second or third year. First-year roots are usable but contain lower concentrations of withanolides. Wash the roots, slice them thin, and dry in a dehydrator or low oven. Once dry, grind to a fine powder. The smell is earthy and distinctive, you'll know it. The classic Ayurvedic preparation is ashwagandha milk. Warm 2 cups of milk or milk alternative, whisk in 1 teaspoon of ashwagandha powder, add a pinch of cardamom and cinnamon, and sweeten with raw honey to taste. Drink it 30 minutes before bed. This preparation improves sleep quality, which itself is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory interventions known, while delivering the adaptogenic compounds that reduce cortisol and calm the nervous system overnight. Standard therapeutic dosing is 300 to 600 milligrams of root extract daily, if purchasing rather than growing your own. Look for extracts standardized to withanolide content. KSM 66 and Sensoril are the most researched commercial preparations, but there is something deeply satisfying about growing your own, harvesting the roots by hand, and preparing a remedy that has sustained people through pain for 3,000 years. 7 plants. 7 distinct and beautifully complementary approaches to one of the most widespread challenges in human experience: chronic pain that limits life and steals joy. Turmeric and ginger, working in concert through COX-2 inhibition and direct analgesic action. Stinging nettle with its mineral density and cytokine-suppressing power. Rosemary for nerve pain and muscle spasm. Feverfew for the vicious cycle of neck tension and headache. Horseradish for its fierce rubefacient heat and deep anti-inflammatory glucosinolates. And ashwagandha to address the systemic, stress-driven dimension of pain that the other herbs simply cannot reach. The beautiful thing about growing these plants is that it puts you in a different relationship with your own health. You're not passively waiting for relief, you're actively cultivating it. Every morning when you step outside to check on your turmeric, harvest fresh ginger. Or brush your hand through your rosemary, you're participating in your own healing, and these plants are perennials. Plant them once and many of them will return for years or even decades, giving you an ever-expanding, ever-deepening medicinal garden that grows more productive with time. Start with one, maybe the one that speaks most directly to your particular kind of pain. Get it in the ground this season. By next summer, you'll have your first real harvest and perhaps your first real sense that the garden isn't just a beautiful place but a pharmacy. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to leave a comment below and let me know which of these plants you're most excited to grow, or if you've already had experience using any of them for pain relief. I'd love to hear your story. And if you're just getting started with medicinal herb gardening, I've linked some helpful resources below. See you in the garden.